Intimacy is rarely a script. It is a dance of energy, tension, and imagination. Women, just like men, carry within them hidden desires that they may never articulate directly. Not because they don't want them, but because desire is fragile. It resists being reduced to a checklist. It thrives in the unknown, in the possibility of surprise, in the trust that the partner can sense what is unsaid. First, women secretly want you to take the lead sometimes. Not every moment, but there are times when being gently but firmly guided creates a rush of safety and surrender. It's not about domination in the cliché sense, but about showing confidence. That allows her to let go of control and melt into the moment. When you can hold her body and her mind with strength, she feels free to step into her vulnerability. Second, there is a craving for whispers that are not polite, but raw. Words that tease, provoke, even shock her slightly. Dirty talk, when authentic, awakens her imagination and gives her permission to explore sides of herself that daily life doesn't invite. It is not the words themselves, but the energy behind them, the way they claim her, the way they make her feel desired without hesitation. Third, women secretly long for teasing that stretches the moment. Too often, intimacy is rushed. But when you slow down, when you edge, pause, retreat, anticipation builds like fire under the skin. The ache becomes the pleasure, and when the release finally comes, it is magnified tenfold. Restraint ironically becomes the fuel of desire. Fourth, there is a hunger for being seen as both soft and wild. She wants you to hold her face tenderly, and then moments later press her against the wall with urgency. This contrast awakens every layer of her being, the good girl and the untamed, the nurturer and the seductress. She may never say it, but she wants to feel all sides of herself alive in your presence. Finally, she wants to feel that you are fully there, not distracted, not performing, not seeking approval, but immersed, because presence is the ultimate turn-on. When she senses that you are attuned, reading her body, listening to her breath, she feels more desired than any words could express. These dirty things are not really dirty at all. They are deeply human, hidden beneath layers of fear, shame, or politeness. But when you create safety and step into the courage of play, you awaken her secret desires. And in that space, intimacy becomes not just physical. It becomes electric, alive, unforgettable. Desire is not always spoken. It lives in silence and subtle signals. It lives in the way the body arches slightly when touched, in the pause before a kiss that lasts just a second longer than expected, in the way the eyes avert as if holding back a secret. It is not always declared with words, because words can often flatten what is meant to stay layered, mysterious, and alive. Desire resists being caged in definitions. It prefers to live in tension, in imagination, in those small moments when you wonder, does she want this? And the very uncertainty becomes the spark that fuels attraction. Women especially carry desires that are rarely voiced directly, not because they lack confidence, but because so much of feminine desire is intertwined with trust, anticipation, and the safety to be both wanted and unguarded at the same time. In intimacy, many women secretly crave things that they may never confess out loud. Not because these desires are shameful, but because there is a unique beauty in the unspoken. What makes it powerful is precisely that it is not announced, but discovered. It is the look in her eyes that says, don't stop, even when her words don't form. It is the way her body leans into yours when you take charge with certainty. These are the signals, the whispers of longing, the invitation into her hidden world. One of the deepest secrets is the longing to be led. At times, women want to surrender, not because they are weak, but because surrender is a gift that requires strength. She wants to feel your confidence, to sense that you can take her to a place she cannot take herself. This is not about force or domination. It is about presence, about the kind of leadership that allows her to relax into trust. When you take initiative, when you guide her with your hands, your voice, your breath, she experiences the liberation of not having to think, not having to orchestrate, but simply allowing herself to feel. Another hidden craving lies in words that are not sweet, but raw. In the light of day, many women carry themselves with grace, poise, responsibility, but in the privacy of intimacy, they often long for language that frees them from that constant composure. Dirty talk is not about vulgarity. It is about the way it suspends the rules of politeness. It grants permission for the erotic to spill into the forbidden. When you whisper words that claim her, that make her feel desired beyond restraint, you unlock a part of her that everyday life suppresses. The thrill is not in the exact phrases, but in the energy, the audacity, the willingness to say what cannot be said elsewhere. Equally powerful is the art of teasing. Women secretly want to be made to wait, to be stretched across the edge of anticipation. Too often, intimacy becomes hurried, reduced to routine. But when you slow it down, when you pull back, just as the pleasure peaks, when you circle the moment, without rushing to conclusion, you awaken a hunger that grows fiercer with every second. Anticipation is the oxygen of desire. The delay, the build-up, the restraint, it is in those moments that longing transforms into fire. And when finally released, it is no longer just pleasure, but an eruption of something much deeper. She also longs for contrast, the interplay of tenderness and urgency. To be held like something fragile, then moments later claimed with intensity. This duality is not contradiction, it is completion. A woman wants to feel all of herself reflected in your touch. The softness and the wildness, the innocence and the hunger. Too often she must choose which side of herself to present to the world. But in your presence, in bed, she secretly wants to be all of it. The good girl and the untamed, the nurturer and the seductress. When you can hold both sides of her without judgment, you give her permission to feel fully alive. And above all, presence is the foundation that makes these secret desires safe to emerge. Presence means you are not simply performing, not distracted by your own thoughts, not detached from her reality. It means you are fully there, reading her breath, noticing the rhythm of her body, listening beyond words. Presence tells her that she is not just being touched, but being seen. And being seen in this way is the ultimate turn-on. When she feels you are attuned to her, she does not need to explain. She does not need to instruct. She can simply surrender to the moment, knowing you will feel your way into her truth. These so-called dirty things that women secretly want are not dirty at all. They are expressions of the human need to be both safe and wild, both cherished and ravished, both respected and desired without inhibition. They live in the space between trust and thrill, between tenderness and intensity. Women may not always say them out loud because desire loses some of its magic when it is spelled out. But if you are attentive, if you are courageous enough to lead, to speak raw words, to tease, to contrast, and above all to stay present, you will awaken those hidden desires she keeps tucked beneath the surface. And in that awakening, intimacy becomes not just a physical act, but a charged encounter that transforms both of you. When you step into this dance, you will see that the unspoken is more powerful than the spoken, that silence carries more truth than rehearsed lines, and that what she secretly wants is not a list of techniques, but the feeling of being desired completely, body, mind, and soul. Women often crave playfulness, mystery, and power dynamics in intimacy, even if they never put it into words. The beauty of these cravings is that they are rarely spoken directly, yet they reveal themselves in subtle ways. A playful glance, a mischievous smile, the way she leans in as if inviting surprise. All of these are signals that desire lives not in routine, but in the sparks of unpredictability. Playfulness in intimacy is not about childishness, it is about bringing back the sense of curiosity and fun that makes every encounter feel new. When intimacy becomes predictable, when every step follows the same order, desire begins to fade. But when you introduce laughter, when you tease, when you allow space for spontaneity, you keep the flame alive. She may never ask for it outright, but her body and spirit long for the energy of play. Mystery is equally powerful. It is the antidote to the suffocation of familiarity. Women crave the unknown not because they are dissatisfied, but because mystery stirs the imagination. The mind is the most erotic organ, and when you give her a reason to wonder what you will do next, her desire deepens. Mystery does not mean secrecy or distance, it means maintaining just enough unpredictability to keep her leaning forward, curious, intrigued. It is the reason why a whispered suggestion can be more arousing than an explicit request, why a blindfold can heighten every other sense, why suspense itself becomes an aphrodisiac. Desire does not thrive in total transparency. It thrives in the tension between what is known and what is yet to be discovered. Then comes the power dynamic, the silent tug-of-war that charges intimacy with electricity. Many women secretly crave the dance of surrender and control, not in the sense of dominance as aggression, but in the sense of polarity, where one takes the lead and the other follows, where energy flows because roles are clear in the moment. To be held firmly, guided confidently, claimed with certainty, these are not acts of taking away her power, but acts of allowing her to set it down. She spends her days often carrying responsibility, making decisions, holding control. In intimacy, the freedom to release that weight, to let someone else lead, can be intoxicating. She may not say it, because language struggles to capture the vulnerability of wanting to be led. But if you can sense it, if you can step into that role with respect and confidence, you give her the chance to taste liberation. Playfulness, mystery, and power dynamics are not separate. They are threads woven together to form the fabric of desire. Without play, intimacy becomes serious and heavy. Without mystery, it becomes predictable. Without power dynamics, it becomes flat. But when these elements merge, intimacy transforms from routine into something alive, unpredictable and magnetic. It is why women can feel deeply aroused not by the act itself, but by the anticipation, the energy, the tension that builds before a single touch even happens. Think about the moments when she laughs in bed, not because something is funny, but because the joy of release bubbles out of her. That laughter is not casual, it is a sign of trust, of surrender, of being so comfortable that she can allow herself to be uninhibited. Or think about the way her breathing shifts when you suddenly slow down, when she expects you to move one way but you pause, pull back, tease her just enough to make her ache. That suspense is not torture, it is desire stretching itself, growing sharper with every delay. These are the moments she secretly longs for, even if she cannot bring herself to ask. So much of female desire lives beneath the surface, because to voice it directly risks stripping it of its power. If she says, "I want you to surprise me," the very act of saying it dissolves the surprise. If she says, "I want you to take charge," the act of asking contradicts the very dynamic she craves. This is why the unspoken is often more telling than the spoken. Her body communicates what her words will not. Her eyes invite you when her lips remain silent. Her stillness, her tension, her surrender, they are all languages of their own. The task, then, is not to demand explicit instruction, but to cultivate awareness, to notice the subtle cues, the shifts in her body, the pauses in her breath, to bring curiosity into intimacy, as if you are learning her over and over again. Because in truth, desire does not live in mastery, but in discovery. It is not about perfecting a routine, it is about approaching each moment as if it is brand new. That is where playfulness thrives, where mystery lingers, where power dynamics unfold naturally. Women do not crave these things because they are complicated or demanding. They crave them because they are human, because intimacy without them becomes functional instead of passionate. Play gives her freedom to be uninhibited. Mystery allows her to fantasize and imagine. Power dynamics give her the release of surrender. Together they awaken the kind of connection that words can never fully express. She may never announce it, she may never explain it, but if you pay attention, if you bring presence and courage, you will unlock the very things she has been waiting to feel. And when you do, intimacy stops being an obligation or a repetition. It becomes a living, breathing encounter. It becomes not just about pleasure, but about being fully alive with one another. In that space, where laughter meets tension, where uncertainty sparks desire, where strength and surrender intertwine, you will discover the secret world she has been holding quietly inside. And once that world is awakened, nothing will ever feel the same again. The deepest erotic connection happens when trust creates space for hidden desires to be revealed without shame. Without trust, intimacy is mechanical, reduced to performance, obligation, or habit. With trust, intimacy becomes an invitation into the unspoken, the secret corners of longing that a woman may never confess out loud, but aches to feel known. Trust is the invisible foundation that allows her to let down the mask she wears in the world and reveal the layers of her sensuality that exist far beneath what is visible. It is the quiet signal that says you are safe here, you can let yourself go here, nothing you reveal will be judged or diminished. When shame is absent, something extraordinary happens. Desire, which normally hides in shadows, begins to step into the light. A woman may hesitate to admit what she craves because society teaches her to be modest, polite, contained. But when she feels your presence without judgment, her desires unfold like a secret garden. The things she thought she should never say become the very things that ignite the bond between you. The fantasies she never spoke of suddenly have a place to breathe. The part of her that longs to be playful, raw, even wild, finally has permission to emerge. This transformation does not happen through technique, but through the felt experience of being utterly safe. Trust does not mean predictability. It means knowing that you can take risks without fear of rejection. That is where eroticism lives. In risk, in edges, in the places that are not rehearsed. But risk is only possible when she knows you will not weaponize her vulnerability. When she senses that her body, her words, her silences will all be held with care. This is why the most powerful intimacy is never about what is done, but about the energy in which it is done. When she feels no shame, her laughter, her moans, her tears, her movements are unfiltered. She is no longer performing to meet your expectations. She is surrendering into her own. In that surrender, desire becomes deeper, more textured. It is no longer about pleasure alone, but about being fully seen. A kiss is not just a kiss. It becomes a declaration of freedom. A whisper is not just a whisper. It becomes an opening into the part of her that longs to be desired without restraint. Even her silence can speak, if you are present enough to hear it. This is the paradox of erotic connection. The more safety she feels, the more danger she is willing to explore. The more trust she has, the more daring her desires can become. Imagine the difference between a body that is tense, guarded, uncertain, and a body that is open, alive, completely surrendered. The first may respond out of duty, out of politeness, out of habit. The second responds out of genuine desire, out of joy, out of hunger. That shift happens only when shame is dissolved, when she no longer fears being too much or not enough, when she knows that her longings are not weaknesses but gifts. She can finally let go. And in letting go, intimacy transforms from something done to her into something shared with you. So much of female desire is layered with contradictions. She wants to be soft and strong, cherished and ravished, respected and claimed. In the absence of trust, these contradictions remain unresolved, hidden beneath silence. But in the presence of trust, she can embody them all. She can be tender one moment and fierce the next, laughing in one breath and gasping in the next. This multiplicity is what makes intimacy alive. It is not about consistency, it is about authenticity. Trust allows her to show every side without fear of rejection. And this is why the deepest erotic bond is not built in the heat of passion alone, but in the quiet moments that surround it. The way you listen when she speaks, the way you notice her small gestures, the way you create space for her emotions. These are the threads that weave safety into her nervous system. When those threads are strong, she does not have to hold back in bed. She does not have to silence her fantasies. She can let her body and imagination run free, knowing that what emerges will be welcomed rather than judged. Hidden desires are not dark secrets to be feared. They are treasures waiting to be unlocked. They are the expressions of her humanity, her creativity, her longing to break free from the roles and responsibilities that weigh on her. When you provide the space for them, you are not just awakening her body, you are awakening her soul. And in that awakening, you also awaken yourself. Because desire is reciprocal, when she feels free, you feel more alive. When she reveals her depths, you are invited to reveal yours. The deepest erotic connection is not about what you do, but about who you are in those moments. Present, non-judgmental, attuned, willing to dance between her words and her silences. It is about creating a sanctuary where she can let go of shame and step into her full erotic power. And once she has tasted that space, she will crave it again and again, because it is rare, it is sacred, and it is unforgettable. When you understand this, intimacy becomes more than physical release. It becomes a place of truth, of liberation, of radical presence. It becomes a space where love and lust are not in opposition, but in harmony. And in that harmony, you discover what it really means to connect. Not just body to body, but soul to soul. It's not about technique, it's about presence, tension, and the courage to lean into the unspoken. Too often, people think intimacy is a set of skills, a checklist of things to master, a series of moves to be performed correctly. But the truth is that desire does not thrive on technique, it thrives on energy, on subtlety, on the space between what is said and what is silently understood. You can study every manual, learn every so-called secret, but if you are not fully present, if you are not tuned into the moment, none of it will matter. Presence is the foundation of eroticism. It means you are not distracted, not self-conscious, not rehearsing what comes next, but here, completely here, with her. It means you are listening with your whole body, noticing the shift in her breath, the way her skin responds to your touch, the way her silence carries meaning. Presence makes her feel that she is not just being touched but being seen, that her body is not just a body but an entire universe worth exploring. And then there is tension, the art of holding back, of not giving everything at once. Tension is the electricity that turns simple touch into fire. It is the way you stop just before she expects you to continue, the way you pull away when she wants you closer, the way you linger in the pause between kisses so that anticipation grows sharper than the kiss itself. Without tension, intimacy becomes flat, predictable, stripped of surprise. With tension, every moment vibrates with possibility. She's not simply waiting for what comes next. She's aching for it. Her imagination racing, her body alive with expectation. Desire needs space to breathe, and tension is what creates that space. It is the gap between hunger and satisfaction, the place where fantasy stretches itself. But presence and tension mean nothing without courage. Because the unspoken is not always comfortable, and leaning into it requires bravery. Many desires are never voiced, not because they don't exist, but because shame silences them. Women, especially, often carry longings they will not articulate, fearing they might be judged, misunderstood, or rejected. The courage you need is not to demand confessions, but to create an atmosphere where the unspoken can reveal itself naturally. This courage is felt in your willingness to be raw, to risk stepping into intensity, to embrace silence without feeling it, to let the moment speak for itself. It is the courage to explore edges without fear, to bring playfulness into the unknown, to allow her hidden desires to emerge at their own pace. Think of the difference between a partner who performs techniques and one who makes you feel completely safe yet unpredictably alive. The first may impress for a moment, but it fades quickly. The second becomes unforgettable, Because what stays with us is not what was done mechanically, but how it made us feel. Women remember not the exact steps, but the energy, the presence, the way time seemed to suspend itself. They remember the shivers of anticipation, the goosebumps from a whisper, the thrill of being guided with confidence, the freedom of being able to let go without shame. Presence is an invitation. Tension is the spark. Courage is the doorway. Together they create an intimacy that feels alive, dynamic, unpredictable. It is not about rushing to climax, but about expanding the entire landscape of desire. When you slow down, when you resist the urge to finish quickly, you realize that every moment holds the possibility of being the most erotic moment. A hand brushing her thigh, a breath against her neck, a pause that lasts long enough to make her plead. These are not techniques. They are energies, born from awareness and courage. So much of intimacy happens before a single touch. It is in the look that lingers a second too long, in the silence heavy, with unspoken meaning, in the playful push and pull of attention. Women crave this dance not because they are complicated, but because desire itself is complicated. It is not linear. It does not follow a straight line. It loops, it pauses, it leaps, it hides. And when you understand that, you stop trying to control it and start learning to ride its waves. That is where presence keeps you grounded. Tension keeps you alert. And courage keeps you willing to step into what you cannot predict. The unspoken is not empty. It is rich with signals. Her eyes may say more than her words ever could. The way she resists for a moment before surrendering tells you everything about her hunger for power dynamics. The way she arches into your touch without asking reveals her longing for guidance. If you are only focused on doing things right, you will miss these signals. But if you are attuned, if you are willing to lean into the silence, the pauses, the contradictions, you will discover her secret desires without her ever needing to say them aloud. What women want in intimacy is rarely a list of acts. It is the feeling of being consumed by your presence, of being suspended in delicious tension, of being free to reveal their hidden longings without fear. When you can give that, you transcend the mechanical and step into the unforgettable. And it all begins when you stop chasing technique and start cultivating presence, when you stop rushing toward completion and start savoring the tension, when you stop fearing the unspoken and instead find the courage to lean into it. Because the most powerful desires are never shouted, they are whispered. They live in the pauses, in the silences, in the spaces where words fall short but bodies speak fluently. And when you enter that space with presence, with tension, with courage, you discover that the unspoken is not something to be feared. It is the very place where true erotic connection is born. And in the end, what makes intimacy unforgettable is never the techniques, never the rehearsed steps, but the way you make her feel when she is with you. It is the presence that tells her she is the only thing in your world in that moment. It is the tension that makes her heart race and her imagination catch fire. It is the courage to lean into the silences, the pauses, the unspoken, and discover her hidden longings without her ever needing to say them aloud. When you understand this, you stop chasing perfection and instead step into connection. You awaken the kind of desire that is raw, alive, and limitless. Because in the end, the deepest intimacy is not about what you do, it is about who you dare to be when the masks come off, when the words fall away, and when only truth remains between you.